But there's a question many ask. Many are brave enough to ask, and some are not brave enough to ask. But recently I was asked the following question. A guy is telling me, I heard from this darshan that just like Geulas Mitzrayim, that only 20% were redeemed, 1 out of 5 were redeemed, and the other died. It says, so too, in the Geula Achroina, in the final redemption in Mitzvah Hashem coming soon, only a very small portion will see the Geula. The pasuk says, "Ki emeitzecha me'eretz Mitzrayim." Like the days that I took you out of Egypt, so too will be this Geula. That means only 1 out of 5, which means only those who want to be redeemed will be redeemed. So he's saying, I don't know if I want to be redeemed, or I want to be redeemed. I don't know where I'm holding. So too. He says, over the years, I heard all kinds of different things. A lot of people are not going to rise to Tchiyas HaMesim. There's all kinds of sins that people may be involved with that they don't have a chelek in the world to come. So I'm afraid. Maybe I'm not going to be Zoiche. They have a part to be from those lucky ones to greet Mashiach Tzidkenu. I sin. We have nisyonis. What can I do? What type of a tshuva? What do I do in order to know that I'm ready for Mashiach Tzidkenu every single minute? I think
Make Aliyah.
Make Aliyah is one. It's one of the 613 mitzvahs. You have other 612. I think it's a $50,000 question that maybe many people struggle with. But he was brave enough to ask it. First, we must know that there is no end and no shear to the Rachmanus of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the greatest Rachmanus that a father can display to his son, to his beloved son, doesn't come close to the love and compassion that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for his children. For everyone in Klal Yisrael, even the most Pashut Yid. You know, they're saying it's not so Pashut to be a Pashut Yid. The entire Galus, the whole Galus that it's lengthening, it's so long, 1955 years, that's because of the Rachmanus that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for simple Yidden. Because if HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted only to redeem the tzaddikim, the Geula would come a long time ago. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu has patience. And He wants simple people to be able to participate in the Geula, to be able to do tshuva, so He waits and He waits and He waits, so the whole Geula is delaying because of the Rachmanus. Because of the love of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Chofetz Chaim writes in Shmiras HaLashon, Chelek Beis, Shar Yutes, Perek Yutes, that the Taina, the claim of Klal Yisrael, the time of the Miraglim was, in fact, HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised us, Klal Eretz Yisrael is going to give it, but only if we will be tzaddikim. And on that, Yehoshua and Caleb responded, that is a mistake. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is not medactic with a person to say, I will only give you salvation if you're going to be a tzaddik. No. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to a person, I'll save you, but only in case you don't rebel against me. And that's why Yehoshua and Caleb over there said, Ach ba'Hashem, al timroidu. Don't rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's long. As a person tries to do his mitzvahs with kavanah, but he doesn't rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he can hope for the best. And it's true that in the Geula of Mitzrayim, only 1/5 was able to come out. But that was because they rebelled against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. They saw His stretched arm. It was in Makas Choshech. So at that point they saw already 9 unbelievable Makos. 10 amazing, wondrous plagues that the Egyptians were hit with. They saw Moshe Rabbeinu. They saw Kodesh Baruch Hu sending Moshe, Avdo HaNe'eman, and everything is true. They saw Kodesh Baruch Hu. And yet they didn't want to go out. That's rebelling against the Kodesh Baruch Hu. But that means nothing to us who are under the, as if, sovereignty of the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, that puts all kinds of wrong thoughts into our hearts. And we didn't reach the Kirvas Elokim level that they reached. So we cannot claim on people in our generation like we did back then. And of course a person can do Averos now and say, okay, you know, it's a very tough generation. Chas v'shalom, a person should do his best to do the right thing. And every so often, maybe if a person stumbles in Averos, chas v'shalom, for him to say, I don't think I'll be zoiche to be redeemed. Chas v'shalom. If a person sins, he has to do tshuva. He has to put all kinds of fences to make sure he doesn't stumble in those Averos again. But as long as he does what he can, and he tries to do tshuva, he doesn't need to look to the back. Even the kings that are mentioned in the Mishnah Maseches Sanhedrin, that it says that will not merit Tchiyas HaMeisim. When did they live? In the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. And they saw HaKadosh Baruch Hu with their eyes, the open miracles in Beis HaMikdash. And yet they sinned. And at the end of the Gemara it says that they will come to Tchiyas HaMeisim. How much more so us? And the punishment that is mentioned in the Torah is not to revenge against the person who sinned. It's the opposite. The punishment comes to refine a person, to purify a person. That even though he sinned, he should be able to purify himself and to be gathered with the tzaddikim. As Rashi says, beginning of Parshas Nitzavim, Rashi asks, why is Nitzavim, Atem Nitzavim Hayom, you are all here today, right after all the curses in Parshas Kisavo, all the rebukes, all the toichos? Rashi says, because after they heard 98 rebukes and curses, they said, who will be able to withstand all this? And Moshe appeased them and said, you angered HaKadosh Baruch Hu many times, and yet, you see, you are still here. Just like the day that is still here, you are still here. So too in the future, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will illuminate for you, and the klalos, and the yisurim that you get, allow you to continue standing here. In other words, the purpose of punishment, the purpose of affliction, is only to purify a person in order to allow him to merit to see Bias Mashiach and Tchiyas HaMeisim. In order to be from those who are Zoiche, to see Mashiach and Tzidkenu, we have to say every single day, the 13 Ani Mamins, including Ani Mamin Bevias HaMashiach. With that, we awaken the anticipation in our hearts to, in fact, see Mashiach Tzidkenu. Reb Chaim Vital Zatzal, the Talmid of the Arizal, again we Zoiche to mention the Arizal on his Yotzeit, asked his Rebbe, Shara Gilgulim, Agdam Lamed Ches. When we look at ourselves, he's asking this 450 years ago, we're like midgets compared to earlier generations. How does it work? And the Arizal told him, you should know that the gadlus of one's nefesh is not dependent on his maisim, is dependent on the time and the generation. Which means, in these generations, the Arizal 450 years ago, when the klipa, when the impurity increases so much, a tiny little mitzvah is compared to a gigantic mitzvah in previous generations. And if the Arizal said this to Reb Chaim Vital 450 years ago, what would we have said today? When darkness covers the land, Mistama, a tiny little mitzvah today, or the reverse. A big Aveira today is probably pachos mikishiu compared to the past. The Yismach Yisrael brings in the name of his father. This is about 150 years ago. The Yismach Yisrael brings that Reb Chaim Vital asked the Arizal, based on the Mishnah, about Reb Elazar ben Azariah, that he would go out on Shabbos with a cow that had some kind of a strip that you're not allowed to carry, according to his shita, on Shabbos. So the Gemara says in Yerushalmi, it wasn't really his cow, he wouldn't do it. It was his neighbor's. But since he didn't protest, it is counted as if it's his. And once he realized that's what happened, he fasted so many times that his teeth became black. Imagine, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah is going on Shabbos outside, and he is in the sugya. He has no idea what goes on to the right, to the left. Doesn't see any cows. He sees the Gemara. And then they tell him, oh, by the way, 5 minutes ago, your neighbor's cow was walking here with what, according to you, is not allowed to on Shabbos. He felt so bad. So he started fasting so many times because he didn't protest something that he didn't even know. That's the Dikduk Adin. This is Reb Chaim Vital's asking the Arizal, if for such a tiny little sin, which in our eyes would be nothing, he fasted so many things, so many times, what should we do with our sins? And the Arizal says to him, you should know, in our generations, one anacha, one sighing, oi, a sincere one, of oi, what did I do mistakenly? It's more dear to HaKadosh Baruch Hu than all the tiniest, all the fasting, and all the sigufim of the Rishonim. Because of the hastar haspanim, because of the concealment in our generations. If the Yismach Yisrael did such a Kal Vachomer, and he said, if that's the case 450 years ago, what would we say today? Kal Vachomer, Ben Mashal Kal Vachomer today. One Anacha Avayid, one sign, a sincere one, coming from the depth of his heart, what it means to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.